Welcome to the Internet Chess Club. Checkmate.
Hello everyone, welcome to our Alapin series. Today we're going to explore quite a new variation, or at least a new idea. If this is the main position in the Alapin, and d4 capture knight f3 is the main position after knight f6, there is another possibility. Delaying d4. The idea is that black doesn't have or might not have a clear target to go after in the center. Knight b6, and here two moves are possible. Bishop e2, which I don't believe is worth, well, we'll mention it, but not too much, and bishop b3, which is of course the main move. After bishop e2, simply playing g6, going after the e5 pawn, and bishop g7 just seems very possible and very okay for black. For example, knight c3, d6, bishop f4, take on e5, take on e5, castle. Black is just okay. Sveshnikov against Karups, Kapala Legrand 1995, or bishop f4 immediately. This probably somewhat better chance for white, and with the idea take on d6, and maybe somewhat using the fact that there can be some pressure against this pawn. Knight c3, castle. Well, after castle, bishop g4, it seems black is just very simply okay. Sveshnikov against Kharlov, 2003. And another game, Sveshnikov against Antons, 1993. Bishop g5 might be white's main chance for advantage. Queen e8. I would even consider maybe a move such as bishop f6. After captures, the queen might be quite well placed on f6. But after queen e8, it seemed that here white was somewhat better. So maybe bishop f6 is an improvement. This is Gordana against Atakisi, 2005. If capture here, the pawn on b7 falls. But overall, this seems very simple alternative. Also, the main move that is played after bishop e2 is actually immediately d6. I mean, we can follow some strong players play this. Let's just see just two games as examples. Adams against Khalifman and Adams against Anand. But many other strong grandmasters play this. Alon Greenfeld from Israel played this against Herchek and against Mislov. In all examples, black was just simply okay. So let's first see actually Adams Khalifman. Khalifman actually played e5 here, which is, well, another possibility. After capture on d6, he played e5, d4, and here just capture, e4, bishop takes d6, check on b4 and check on d4 and take the pawn on d4. Maybe some microscopic advantage for white, but Adams didn't try so much. This was Adams Khalifman, Vic and Z, 1995. e6 is another possibility instead of e5, or just simply queen takes d6. Knight a3 is one move, and hereafter simply e5, castle, bishop e7, d3, castle. Black is actually already tiny bit better. Adams against Anand match in London, the candidate matches of the PCA, Professional Chess Association, no longer exist, but they played their match, I'm not sure exactly which stage, quarterfinal, semifinal, but Anand won this match very, very convincingly. So, and also, one thing we can see here, delaying d4 can be an advantage, but if c5 and e5, that is already a disadvantage. The noise would, I actually made this noise, meaning No. The pawn on d3 can actually be this big, huge disadvantage. So this is something white should be careful. There are some other games here, we're not gonna explore them too much, but it just seems that with the bishop on e2, white doesn't have much to show. So we have to go to bishop b3. And here black has quite many possibilities, and each one of them deserves attention. Well, g6 might transpose after d4 capture. It might transpose to one of the lines with immediately d4. So we are not going to deal with it now. Actually, a line that's considered very dangerous for black is immediately knight g5. It's very clear the difference between the place of the bishops on e2 and b3. But this will be dealt in when we go over this position. d4 right away, or actually most correct move order, or main move order. And now g6 is one alternative. So this we will have to wait for some more work to be done. But right now we're going to see what's not transposing, which are two possible moves here. Either c4, which is a very logical move, saying you're not playing d4, okay, let's try and prevent you from playing d4, or playing immediately d5. Pawn takes on d6, en passant, and here queen takes d6 is the main move, but there are other moves that are possible. For example, pawn takes d6, which is not played that often because it's supposed to be, well, somewhat more comfortable for white, but it was played by not a very bad player named Garry Kasparov with the black pieces, playing against Ivanchuk, another not very bad player. Ivanchuk got a slight advantage, but nothing really too much. Bishop g4, h3, take on c5 is one idea. Black pieces are not that greatly organized. That's why white might have some chances for advantage, and the pawns in the center might actually block black pieces in some way. Now Ivanchuk took, and well, they fought a little bit, but white's advantage never became something to speak about. So that was a draw. Ivanchuk Kasparov, Dortmund, 1992. A solid way for black to play, but somewhat passive. Another possibility is e6 instead of pawn takes d6, and then d4, bishop takes d6, castle, quite a normal position. Knight b to d2, c takes d4, and black is just very much okay. Tkachev against Leko. I believe it's from the Blitz World Championship in Moscow, 2008. So, other than queen takes d6, we saw capture on d6, e6. Immediately c4 is a very interesting alternative. Bishop c2. And here e5 is the main move. Bishop g4 was played in Cermek, one of the leading grandmasters playing the Alapin 2600 that plays it very, very regularly. h3, bishop h5, and black decided to take, and white is slightly better here. b3 is a critical idea for white, removing the pawn from c4, and then white might get some center back and putting some pressure on the c4 pawn, if not b3. But e5, castle, bishop takes d6, d3 or d4 are d3 is the move I want to show here, and it doesn't seem like white has much here, but it's not very comfortable for black to actually castle. For example, h6, rook d1, bishop e7, queen e2 was played in Pridovic against Timofeev, 2650 or more players in Sarajevo 2008. This is quite a recent one. No questions, white is better here. And another example, just simply bishop e6, white played rook e1, and knight to d4, trying to really break in the center as quickly as possible. Adams against McShane, England 1997. Adams won this game. So queen takes d6 seems the simplest possibility without any, being too smart. White has several possibilities here, either castle or knight a3. After castle, bishop e6 is just a simple possibility, and after either d4 or capture on e6, we might transpose again into one of the main lines that are coming from d4 right away. Take, 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 rook d8, which we will deal clearly in future videos we will do. But there are clearly other possibilities. c4 is one of them, and bishop g4. Again, this was played by some strong grandmasters if they don't want to go to the main line, like Tkachiev-Kamsky was in this position. Tkachiev played h3. This is in 2008. Basically, this is not something for black to be too much concerned. There are many, again, rook e1, e6. Let's, for example, see a game between Nan and Anand, which was a very interesting example. It looks like Nan was better, but not a very clear position. This was played in Monte Carlo Melody Amber tournament, and I believe here white is actually somewhat better, but Anand won this one with the black pieces. But if we have a simple alternative, bishop e6, going back to the main position, that's just enough for black. So knight a3, this is if white really doesn't want to, let's say, transpose back to the main position. Bishop e6, again, this is a possibility. If e6, then maybe white achieves something, because knight a3 usually is a very useful move, and e6 not the most useful play for black. For example, I'll show just quite a funny comment. d4, bishop e7 was played, and the comment is this: after bishop e7, after this move, black starts experiencing problems. a6 should have been played automatically by a 2550 player such as Magnus Carlsen. Well, this is quite funny to see that bishop e7 is a mistake, should of course be played by 2550 player such as Carlsen. Well, today it's more like a 2800 player. This is in 2005, and I was quite laughing a lot reading this comment. But after bishop e7, Carlsen played another quite wrong move. Queen b8 is necessary, and white is better here. For example, capture and just castle. But after queen d8, it's already quite critical position for black. Capture, bishop takes bishop, queen takes queen, and bishop f4, white is almost winning. This is Tivyakov against Carlsen, Gausdal 2005. So, after this funny comment by how a 25-50 player like Carlsen can play wrong, let's see bishop e6. And now again, d4 is somewhat transposing to other position. I'll just touch it very quickly. Take on b3 and take on d4. Knight b5. And again, black is quite solid here, not too much of a danger. Adams against Leko, Vikanzi 2006. The game was drawn. So basically we can conclude that this position, just this simple play, might be okay to about equalize for black. He might need to transpose to some of the main lines if he needs to study them, but that might be an easier way for, or let's say a solid way for black to play. Let's just deal with another line here just to complete concluding it. Let's say castle right away. Bishop takes bishop. Pawn takes, and here very important move, queen d3. I just wanted to mention this game. Not allowing, remember, might be some price for white not to play d4. Rook e1, queen c2 was also played, but it's not really much. e6, rook e3, queen d7, and black is just okay here. This is a game between two of actually the most aggressive players in the world that are playing the solid line, so kinda amusing. Shirov against Topalov, Bastia 2003. Black is okay, although Shirov won with the white pieces. So another alternative might be to play immediately c4. This is most likely is leading to quite clearly very bizarre positions in some way. Bishop to c2. And here black has basically, well, two moves are possible. Queen c7 or g6. Let's start with g6, which is the move played less. Knight a3 is one possibility. d6 is possible. d5 might be considered better, immediately or trying at least to force white to capture, because after d6 white just played queen e2 and now black played d5, quite a bizarre way. The big idea, if capture and queen d5, bishop e4 is just winning for white. So if black has to play here d5, then d6 not such a correct move. h3, bishop g7, castle, maybe d4 for white, knight d7, maybe castle for black, but this was just a very complicated, messy position. Adams against Gelfand, Vikanzi, 1994, the candidate matches which Gelfand won. So d6, I don't think that's the correct way if black has to play d5. For sure d5 is the major alternative to consider. Other than knight e3, queen e2 immediately is a possibility. Bishop g7, knight a3 now, castle, castle. And here it is interesting how to protect the pawn. Tkachiev played against Nan in 1994, knight a5. But after b4, white getting a position that is considered slightly better for him with the center. This was Nan against Tkachiev, London 1994, the game was draw. Another alternative, which was played just weeks ago, no more than weeks ago, black played d6. immediately. And after capture, knight c4, knight e3. I'm not sure if black missed this possibility. He played f5 with trying some compensation, and the game was actually drawn. But I don't think that there are many questions that this position is just simply better for white. I mean, just a pawn up, and black has to really prove what he has here. So what is correct? I mean, because queen e2 looks like a very interesting and even correct idea going after c4. I think that this move is actually a very powerful one. A very funny move in my opinion, but the pawn on c4 cannot be taken, or can be, but black is just okay. And this gives black the important tempi. He needs to play d5, which after capture, white queen will be under attack. So this might be an interesting possibility for black to try. Rook e1 definitely is possibility for white after this continuation. So queen e2 may be the most interesting possibility here. We can see that, for example, castle was played, but after bishop g7, rook e1, d6, take, knight a3, castle. Some possibilities here. We can go again to queen e2, and same story, just basically different colors, but exactly same picture. This is Kubali against Tregubov, 2650, both players in 2008, about 6 months ago. White tiny bit better, but should be about okay. b3 is another possibility, but simply bishop e6, knight g5, bishop d5. So, after simply bishop g7, rook e1, d6, take on d6, queen takes d6, knight a3, castle, and here queen e2, queen c5, b3, take. Slightly better for white. Kubalia, Tregubov, 2650, both players from 2008, quite a recent game, actually 6-7 months ago. And somewhat an older game was b3, bishop e6, knight g5, bishop d5, and still black is just okay here, maybe tiny better for white, but this is none against Kramnik. Monte Carlo, the Melody Amber Tournament 1994, the game was draw. The game ended in a draw. So g6 is a possibility, although the weakness of c4 might be somewhat a concern for black. But queen c7 is clearly the main possibility. Queen e2, and here black has one very important move in this position, g5. And several commentary on this position basically say, okay, this is the real deal. White isn't playing d4. You cannot just fool around and allow him, to get everything in order. If he doesn't play d4, let's see what's the deal if we go to the most direct and clear way. And that's why this move g5, I think, is the most basic and principal one. Okay, basically white has two main possibilities here. h3 is a simple one. Capturing on g5 is, believe it or not, actually not one of those possibilities, because either queen takes e5 or knight take, and that's not the way for white to play. If white wants to capture on g5, e6 is maybe the most critical move. First destroying black pawn structure, or trying to destroy, and then capturing. So we are either faced with h3 or e6. Knight a3 was played again in the World Blitz Championship by Tkachyev against Alexeyev, but it just seems that maybe for a blitz game it's a cool idea, but I'm not sure it's really gonna be okay in a real game. Black is just somewhat better. So that's basically the concern here for white. Okay, so h3. Bishop g7, castle, knight takes e5, knight takes g5. There is one player that played, it just cannot be compared. I mean, I don't think I've seen many lines in chess that there was one player that dominated all the games. Grandmaster Sergei Tivyakov, 2700 from Russia, living in Netherlands for quite many years, has played almost every second top game in this line has his name next to it. Just really unbelievable. So if I'm going to mention his name over and over and over, it's not a mistake, it's him. So h6 or d5 are possibilities here. h6. So knight f3 is one move, knight e4 is another. Let's start with knight e4, d5, and d4. If white's not playing it, if he's going to capture, he's going to be in a big trouble. That's the problem. Those pieces are, well, the bishop on c2 may be in the game, but the other are completely in different place. d3, capture on d3. And of course black wants to exchange queens. White of course doesn't. Very complicated position. And black is okay here. White won. Alexeyev against Cheskovsky. Biel, 2006. It is interesting. In many of those positions there's going to be this struggle of black has active pieces and quite good center, but on the other hand he has incredibly weak h-pawn and all his king side is exposed. This is basically the main character of this position. So this was knight e4, looks quite okay for black. Knight f3 is another possibility. Knight g6 is one move, but here black played quite too passive. And going after this knight, a4, very very powerful idea in those positions. a5 is an idea. This just gives the knight this amazing place on b5. White is better. Tivyakov against Vallejo. Dos Hermanes 2003, although black won this one. But maybe a simpler possibility instead of moving the knight is simply d5 and bringing the other one immediately to the center. Now the pawn is protected with the d5 pawn. Zvyaginsev against Wang Yu, 2006, Rook e1 was played. Black is okay here. So other than h6, d5 immediately, maybe the most main move. Bishop a4, critical idea for white. Bishop d7, a5, knight c8. Knight go back to f3 now. Also d4 is possible. Again, it's this big fight whether black's incredibly active pieces and center are enough, maybe more than enough, but for the weak h-pawn and somewhat weak king. This, for example, was Tivyakov against Shabalov. Black won this one in 2005. Knight f6 immediately. Knight g6. d4. Take on d4. And here both moves are possible. For example, queen takes d3, e6. Rook e1, knight c7. This was Tivyakov against Rajabov in Varsha, 2005. Maybe after a6 white was slightly better, but was quite a quick draw. Bishop takes e5, a6, and exactly as we mentioned, huge center, but now weaknesses on both sides. It's a very dynamic, weird game. I personally would prefer black here. I think black is just very okay. Tivyakov against Sakayev, 2700 or about both players from 2005. So it looks like after h3, black is just gonna get the e5 pawn, play d5 at one moment and be okay. e6 is, let's say, white's main idea, or if try to really achieve something. The only thing, it's also not very simple to see what white has after this move. D takes e6, of course, knight takes g5. I'll just mention one game. Sorry, knight takes g5. I mentioned before, said black should be just okay here quite simply, but let's see at least one game we have. Queen takes e5. And if take on e5 and knight take h7, this knight is going to be in trouble. Bishop h6. And the knight is in big trouble. Knight d3 is an idea, and just d5. So this, of course, is impossible to capture there. And after d4, take on d3, take on d3, queen takes. This is exactly the same position that is being achieved, only after e6, black d-pawn is on e6, which gives white at least some much better chances to be better than in this position, which is actually probably slightly better for black already. And this is a game between Torre against Ivanchuk, Yerevan Olympiad 1996, which Ivanchuk won with the black pieces. So, e6. Now it was important to understand why exactly white's playing e6. Queen e5. I mean, dealing with those ideas in the future might be just annoying. There is one idea here, h6 immediately, and bishop d7, knight a3. This was played in Tivyakov against Karznota, Varsha 2005. And it's not a very simple and clear position. Not many games have been played in this position, and I think that this line definitely deserves to be explored much deeply. I mean, black can keep the queens on the board and try to play that way. Definitely a very important move to consider, I believe, if you're playing it from the black side. But almost everyone is playing queen e5, d4, capture, 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 capture. Now bishop h5 is a threat, h6, knight e4, e5. I'm just going to show quite some examples here, but this was played by extremely strong players. Adams and Tivyakov basically are the leading ones playing it with the white pieces, and with the black pieces we have many players like Lautier, Van Veli, Peter Svidler. Many strong players have dealt in this position. Again, the idea is whether this pawn on f7 and this pawn on h6 are weaknesses or advantage for black. Let's start with, well, just simple castle idea. Bishop f5 and bishop g6, a4. We mentioned this idea before, and very interesting position, a5. This is a game between Morozevich and Lautier, 2002. Powerful center, but some weak spots, and white will try to play against either creating weaknesses on the queen side right now. That looks like white's main play. This game ended in a draw, maybe somewhat better for white in this position, but definitely a playable, very playable position. Some other possibilities might be knight a3, and here, for example, f5, bishop h5, sorry, right. After knight a3, instead of castle, that was f5, bishop h5, king d8. And again, black seems to stabilize his position very simply. Punemarov against Van Velde, Bill 2000, and Van Velde won this one with the black pieces. Another possibility is bishop f5 instead of f5. It looks that anyway black is just okay. It's just a matter of what he wants to choose. Knight to c4. And black very soon got the advantage here. Adams against Peter Svidler, Groningen, 1997. Basically, we can see some more examples, but this is enough to understand what is the deal here. Let's go back and review. We have mentioned many different lines here. White is trying to delay d4, but black is either going to play a simple way, which might transpose to the main lines in some ways. For example, after d4, bishop e6, or sorry, castle, bishop e6, or g6, d4 might transpose to some main positions. That at least d5 seems like a very possible idea. We have even one game that Kasparov simply took on d6 and the position is about okay, well, slightly better for white. Or black can play this very interesting way. And now either g6 or maybe the most principal way, g5. h3 just seems very okay for black without any problems, but also e6, which might give white better chances, but still it looks like this position is very playable for black, with the ideas soon of bishop f5, bishop g6, or f5. So overall, this line, which was and is very popular, and at least a main way to not deal with immediately d4, seems to be okay for black. Which line we're gonna choose is a matter of taste, whether playing a solid one with d5 and queen takes d6 or other, or going to. So we looked at one of the major alternatives to avoid d4, which is bishop c4, and it looks like black has several ways and different types to be okay there. We will have to start looking at this main position, and clearly we're going to have a quick look at e6, b6 ideas and other e6 type of game, and obviously the very main position, which is going to be with bishop c4, knight b6, bishop b3, or immediately capture and bishop b3. I'll see you next time. Take care.